Welcome to this standalone explainer on reward models. Our goal today is to take something fuzzy, human taste, and turn it into a single number a computer can optimize. This is the piece that makes reinforcement learning from human feedback possible. Without a number to push on, there is nothing to optimize. By the end, you will be able to derive the reward model loss and even compute it by hand on a scrap of paper. Here is the plan. Why we collect comparisons instead of scores, the Bradley-Terry model derived step by step, two worked examples you can follow on paper, and finally how reward models get hacked, because that weakness shapes every method that comes after this one. Here is the whole idea with no math at all. Think about chess. You cannot really score a chess player on an absolute scale out of 10, but you can watch who beats whom many times, and the ELO system turns those wins into a single rating. A reward model does exactly this, but for answers instead of players. We never ask a human for an absolute score. We show them two answers and ask which is better. Then we fit one number per answer that explains all those head-to-head results. Comparisons in, a rating out. The math here is old. It comes from Bradley and Terry in 1952, and Christiano and colleagues revived it for AI in 2017. Ouyang's team plugged it into language models in 2022, and the construction is beautifully simple. To build the reward model, we take the language model itself and replace its next word output with a single scalar. Same body, new head. So it already understands language. We are just retraining it to output one number, a score, instead of a word. Now let us derive the loss. We start from one reasonable claim. The bigger the score gap between the winner and the loser, the more likely a human prefers the winner. To turn that gap into a probability, we pass it through the sigmoid, which squashes any number into the range 0 to 1. Then we simply train the scores so that the answers humans actually chose come out with high probability. And that last line is the entire reward model loss. Negative log sigmoid of the gap. Minimizing it pushes the winner's score above the loser's. Notice we never needed an absolute label, only which answer won. That is what makes the data so cheap to collect. Let us do the simplest example on paper. A customer asks for a refund and we have two draft replies, one warm and clear, one cold and vague. Say the reward model scores the warm reply 2 and the cold one 1, the gap is 1 and sigmoid of 1 is 0.73. So the model already prefers the warm reply about 73% of the time, and the loss is small, around 0.31. If the ranking had been backwards, the gap would be negative, the probability would drop below a half, and the loss would be large, pushing the scores to swap. That is learning, one comparison at a time. Now the two extremes, because they teach you how the loss behaves. First, a tie. Both answers score 1.5. The gap is 0, sigmoid of 0 is exactly a half. A coin flip, no preference. Now a blowout, a gap of 4. Sigmoid gives 0.98, near certainty. But here is the subtle, important part. Once the gap is already large, pushing it wider barely changes the loss. The sigmoid saturates and flattens. That flattening is a feature. It stops the model from chasing ever larger scores on answers it is already confident about, which keeps the scale sane. Here is that whole behavior in one picture. The S-curve says it all. In the middle, near a gap of 0, it is a coin flip and the curve is steep. Small changes matter a lot. At the two ends, it flattens towards 0 and 1, where extra gap barely moves the probability. Steep where it is uncertain, flat where it is sure. Now the weakness you must always keep in mind. A reward model only knows the region of answers it was trained on. Push the policy too hard against it, and the policy will discover strange off-distribution answers that score high but are actually junk. That is reward hacking, Goodhart's law, where a measure that becomes a target stops being a good measure. There is a second subtlety. Because the loss only ever sees differences, the absolute scale of the reward is arbitrary. Adding a constant to every score changes nothing. So a reward of 5 means nothing on its own, only comparisons are real. Both facts push us toward the KL leash in the next video. A few practical notes. You start from the supervised fine-tuned model and bolt on a single linear head that outputs one scalar. You train it on tens of thousands of human comparisons. Later, during reinforcement learning, a KL leash keeps the policy in the territory where the reward model is trustworthy. And to fight hacking, teams use larger reward models or ensembles of several, so the policy cannot exploit the quirks of any single one. A stronger, more diverse judge is harder to fool. Is a learned reward really worth the trouble versus a simple hand-built metric? Stiennon's 2020 summarization work answered this clearly. A learned reward model beat Rouge. a fixed word overlap metric outright on human preference. The lesson: what people prefer is subtle enough that it is worth learning, not hand coding. That insight is the foundation of the whole field. So, to sum up, a reward model is a Bradley Terry fit. One score per answer, trained so preferred answers sit higher. Powerful, learned only from differences, and easy to overtrust. You can now build and grade one by hand. In the next standalone video, we take this reward and actually optimize it, building the full RLHF pipeline that made ChatGPT. Thanks for watching.